Well, it's certainly a pleasure for me to be here and be able to speak on a subject that's been sort of the forefront of my mind for about the last 15 years, because I mentored veterinary students that were in their senior year getting ready to go out into the workforce. And today we'll be talking about marketing yourself for success in the workforce. Next slide. What I'm doing here is that I've thought about this a little bit different way. Is that I'm presenting as today is that success in the workplace is really a continuum from the time you decide what you want to do as a career, your education, you market yourself for your first job and doing a great job while you're there, unquestionably well. And then you want to, during that time, prove your ability to perform at the next level, meaning get promoted. But one of the things, no matter what you're doing, what stage you're in, whenever you want to make a change or thinking about making a change, you need to perform a self-analysis. And I'm not going to go into any more of this than what I have right now, because that's a whole session I usually give that's a couple hours. But the main questions here that you need to ask yourself is that, what do you like to do? What are you gifted at doing? And will the pay be sufficient for the lifestyle that you're wanting? You know, when you're young and you first start out, money's not that important to you. But once you have a family, a home mortgage, and the kids that want a car and go to college, money becomes much more important to you. So you need to be able to answer those questions. Next slide. Define a good job, and I have on this thing for today, but anytime you're looking for a job, and most people are, in essence, you're sort of looking for a next job continually. There's two concepts, is that networking and marketing. And you focus, they're very closely related, but you will focus on one at a time. But when you're networking, secondarily, you're marketing, because the people you're meeting, and they have an impression of you and may be able to steer you to a job. When you're marketing, secondarily, you're increasing your network. Next slide. Can you turn advancement over to me?
I'm sorry?
Can you turn advancing the slides over to me?
No, you have to do it yourself, but I can do it for you.
Okay. Networking is impersonal. Information is shared in the public. You don't know who sees it and what they think, and there's no specific job or employee targeted. You're essentially fishing. See if somebody bites. Okay, next slide. And simply stated, you're building relationships is all you're really doing with networking. To be successful, you need to identify your target audience. Identify the best place to make contacts. With me as a veterinarian, I usually join the local association. That way I meet the other veterinarians in the area. And so that's good. And you're doing the same thing here with this wellness clinic. All of y'all have some type of medical background interests and stuff. So people, your roads probably cross several times, and somebody may have a job or opening that you would ideally fit to. You need to build relationships with them. It's always good to have a short elevator speech, and I'll go into that a little bit later, but you treat almost everyone you meet as a potential networking event. Next slide. Marketing is much more target specific. Your resume, you don't write a resume just one fits all situations. You write it specifically for each job. Most people do not think of marketing themselves until time that they're looking for a job. But if you do that, you will start out at a disadvantage. The reason being is that automated job searches and applications are insufficient. 80% of the jobs are not publicly advertised. Most of the ones I've gotten has been by word of mouth or recommendations. Now, this may have changed a little bit since the pandemic, where people work from home a lot more and people do more things on the internet than what they used to. So next slide. But resume is the foundation of your portfolio. It's frequently confused with a curriculum vitae. The CV is much broader, and this is what the scientists and academic professionals usually use. They put down everything, every speaking engagement, every meeting they attend to. It will just wear you out to read that if you're not used to it. And I had a person who contacted me. There was a job at DHS that they would like to have, but she wanted to move to DC. She sent me her resume, wanted me to talk to them. Well, it was so long. I took back. I said, in this market, a resume, you just hit your high points and things that will sell them on you. All this nitty gritty things that you have really doesn't do anything for you. And her comment was, if they don't want to see everything I've done, then maybe I don't want to work for them. And but she went ahead and applied, and sure enough, she didn't work for them. She didn't get to see them. A resume is normally focused on a specific job. The purpose of the resume is to get the HR's attention, to get you an interview, not to get you the job, but to get you an interview. It should be tailored for each specific application. Next slide. Resume should only be 1 to 2 pages, not 10 to 15 like hers were. Be sure to address the keywords in job announcements. Normally, initial screening by HR specialists who have no idea about the job that you're advertising for. They just screen for keywords. Example was that I was friends with a veterinarian who worked at FBI on their emergency response team. And he said that he was looking for a veterinarian so that he wasn't the only one. And the other thing, they wanted somebody who was strong in microbiology. Well, I had a lady that worked for me for a while who met those requirements. Plus, she had disaster preparedness and response training and had responded in a couple of situations. So I sent him her resume, and he said, she's ideal. So I told her to apply. A couple of months later, she contacted me and said, have I heard anything? So I contacted the guy at FBI. He said, oh, yeah, matter of fact, I've hired somebody. But evidently she didn't apply because I didn't see her resume. I said, well, she did apply. And evidently that's what happened here, was that they screened her, and they just do a word search, and it didn't have the right words, the right pages. And so didn't get it. It's important to use the keywords to be visible in the first half page, the keywords, and do not overcrowd the page because it gets cluttered and hard to find through. Next slide. Your resume, your first 5 to 8 years out, your education is important because that's what the person is hiring, is your education potential. But after about 8 years, you list your experiences at the top and you demote your education to the bottom, and best to delete the dates. The reason being is that they're not supposed to be age of discrimination, but if they know the years you graduated, they will have a good idea how old you are. And so that may, even though they're not supposed to do anything about age, it may very well come up. So at least hit their minds. Emphasize the positives and use active words. Instead of saying worked at McDonald's, you can say I was promoted to shift supervisor, managed X number of people with a gross sales of X receipts of X dollars, either per shift, per week, per day, or whatever you want to put there. Usually I like to go with a bigger number. And what that does, that gives them something tangible, a result that they can lock onto. Next slide. Making that first impression is important. You never know when you meet a potential future employee or even your spouse. Next slide. It takes 7 seconds to judge a person the first time you meet them. And most studies have shown that they're pretty accurate and they really don't change much. In fact, if you realize that you're getting the wrong first impression, trying to change it is very difficult, and you may not ever be able to change it. Even though you really change it to most people, the original people will still remember that. Next slide. And remember that you never have a second chance to make that first impression. Next slide. To make that first impression, also punctual. If you're on time, that sort of demonstrates that you are reliable, number one, and number two, you think that they are important to you. Plan to arrive at least 5 minutes early, and where you're waiting and they're not waiting on you. And my first job that I really went and interviewed for was at Homeland Security, and I arrived an hour early. But I did that for a special reason, because first of all, I didn't know where the building was. I wanted to find the layout. Secondly, it was a classified facility. You don't just walk in. And so you have to know where to go, who to, but you're probably going to have to be escorted up. So who to call and find out all the specifics and have that laid out with the front desk there. And then what I did, I had about 45 minutes left. I went down the street to a coffee shop and I tanked up on donuts and coffee. So I had a sugar high and a caffeine high when I went back in for the interview. So I was ready. Next slide. Oops. Back up.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Over there?
And then make yourself memorable if you can. What you do is that everyone should have a 1-minute elevator speech. And I already missed my best opportunity when I retired from the Air Force and I started working for TRW. And I went up probably about after I'd been there about a week, I was riding up the elevator with one person and, we had our nice day and all that type of stuff. But I didn't realize until later, he was the president of the company. I had an opportunity to give my 1-minute elevator speech, which I didn't have one in those days, but could have used that. But I would at least let them know what I was interested in. If they had any job openings in that area, that I could possibly do that. Making your first impression, have a catchy duty description. Instead of saying I'm a child care worker, you could say, I care for future leaders of America. So that makes it a little bit more interesting. Okay, go ahead, next slide. Now we'll focus a little bit more in the workplace. There's a lot of different things I would cover, but the two main important parts is the conscientiousness and determination. And I'll do a little bit more in those two areas. Okay, next slide. Interaction in the office. Essentially, your interaction should be governed by what your mother taught you. Next slide. Be considerate of others. Arrive early or at least on time. Be friendly. Complete task on time. Now, let me stop there for a second. If at one point you see that you're not going to be able to complete that task on time, go to the person that gave you that suspense and say, the way things are going, I'm probably going to be a week or 2 weeks later. Will that work all right? At least they know what to expect. And if it's not, you'll be able to change your priorities around where you can finish it on time. So the other thing is that when you get a tasker from particularly your boss, go back and ask them, what is the suspense? Because a lot of times, most of the time I found, they won't tell you a date due. Don't just wait around and hope that they don't ask you for it until you actually finish it on your schedule. You want to finish it on their schedule. Office activities. In your office place, you're usually somewhat competitive with the other areas, sections of the office. When you're doing a office activity where you're all working together in the office, you build a lot of camaraderie and relationships that you normally wouldn't do because you are working together. And it really pays dividends back in the office. Be willing to help others, but don't do like I did, eager to help people and do things, is that people start taking advantage of you. So guard against that. If you see that they're coming to you to do what you would call their job, you need to cut yourself off from them the best and most polite way as you can. Next slide. Inter-office communication. The next couple of slides are just my opinion, but from my experiences, is that be considerate of your office colleagues. Next slide. Voice level on phone. I had two nurses that worked down the hallway about 2 or 3 doors down from me. And one day I heard this echo, this different thing. And I sort of ignored it the first time. A couple of days later, I heard it again. And so this time I got up and walked, and what was going on, two nurses that were in offices next to each other were on a conference call, and both of them were using the speakerphone. And so I could hear one say something, then I would hear it through the other person's speakerphone. And speakerphones are usually turned up fairly loud. So it was really ringing down the hallway. So I closed the doors. And the next time they met, the doors were open again. They didn't take the hint. So about the third or fourth time, I asked them, would you please close the door? It's best to use. If you use a handset, it doesn't bother anybody. But if you use a speakerphone, you need to go to the conference room, or at the minimum, keep your door closed. Between your door closed and my door closed, we'll work it out. The other thing is that I guess I was fortunate or disfortunate, and my office was a corner of 2 hallways. And a lot of people would meet there and talk excessively, extreme conversations. There again, if you're going to take a long time, close the door or get a conference room. And for both of these situations, get a conference room. And then you can talk as loud as you want usually, and not bothering other people who are trying to get their work done. Next slide. Workplace communications. Here again, this is just my opinion, is that try to use a 24-hour response rule by email and voice message. If you can answer it right away, do it. But if you can't, get back with them, with the sender, within 24 hours and ask them, or ask them what date you could have it done by, if that was all right with them, if that would work their schedule. And normally they will say yes. The other thing is, if you're mailing out a task or asking people to do things, provide a clear date. I usually try to do that on the subject line so it smacks them in the face right away. Because a lot of times people don't know that, open an email right away. Don't assume that the recipient knows your schedule and when you need to have the information back. The other thing is that I would recommend joining Toastmasters. Toastmasters, if you're not familiar with it, is a group. It's very low cost. And I was in one several different, my father really encouraged me to do it. So, but moving around the military, because I usually moved every 2 years, the time I got set up and going and could join it, it was time to quit and move to the next base. But when I was in the Office of Health Affairs at the Department of Homeland Security, I was on the 6th floor, and there are Toastmasters met every week instead of most places just met once a month. They met every week. And so it gave you plenty of opportunities to hear other people speak and their evaluations, and a chance for you to speak and people to evaluate you. So it really helps out. I think it's good. It gives you plenty of practice of speaking and thinking on your feet. Next slide. Conscientiousness, why it's so successful. Conscientious persons are better at setting goals and persistence amid setbacks. They are self-disciplined, which is the most important attribute. They will follow rules. Instead of giving up, they will switch to a more attainable goal. But once they reach that attainable goal, then they usually go on to the more difficult goal. The other thing is that if you look at, there's a very little difference between I can't do it and I can do it. So you can usually do more than you think you can. Yep. Next slide. Am I speaking too fast, or?
Can you send us a thumbs up if the pace is good, please? Oh, yes, you're good. You're good, Dr. Meinders.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, because I was trying to stay within my time frame. People who test high in conscientiousness usually make better grades at school, commit fewer crimes, stay married longer. For those of you who are not married, you might want to give a second consideration to conscientiousness. Those people who are spontaneous are usually much more fun. But if you're married to somebody who is impulsive, you never know what they're going to do. And usually impulsive doesn't make as good a decision as somebody who's conscientious. It takes longer. They usually live longer too. And a study shows that they make higher salaries, and other studies have found it's an important factor in finding and retaining employment. Next slide. The difference between a successful person and others is not the lack of strength, not the lack of knowledge, but the lack of will. And that was stated by Vince Lombardi, who is probably one of the best known football coaches in the country, or was when he was alive. And if you look at that little boy on that slide, on that animal, you'll look at his teeth gritting. He's not planning on, he's determined. He's not going to turn loose. He's going to ride that animal to the finish line. And that's really what you want. Next slide. You achieve greatness only through hard work, target, deliberate practice. And, what they're saying there is like I am. I go out and get a bucket of balls, and I usually use every one of my irons and just trying to hit the ball instead of having a deliberate goal of 300 times and 80% of the time be within 20 feet. Another example, which is of course related to me, because I'm 6'4", and I played a lot of basketball in my later years. And Kevin Durant, you probably don't know him, but he does have a California connection. He played with the Golden State Warriors from 2016 to 2019. They won 2 NBA championships. In one game, I don't know where this was, if it was there. He's now playing in the DC area. He's from Maryland originally. The team threw him the ball with just a few seconds left on the clock. He shot and made the basket, and they won the game. A news commentator came out to his mother and said, "Were you nervous when he got the ball?" And she said, "Oh my God, no." He says, "I've seen him make that shot since he was 7 years old. He practiced a lot," is what he did. So anyway, next slide. I had to do the feeding and stuff when I got home from school and got home from practice, and it was dark. I had to do it in the dark. And we had a security light out by the barn, put up a basketball goal, and in the dark, I'd go out there and shoot. You couldn't dribble because it was grass and ground dirt, but I could shoot, and I shot a lot. And so, my senior year, I was a high scorer most of the games and most valuable player, and it all paid out because I did a lot of extra work. For determination, be known for producing quality work. You not only know what you do, but you should know why you do it and know how it serves your customers. That's the way you become the expert in your field. But most people know what to do, but they don't know why they do it or how it serves the other people. Plan and take time to do tasks completely. Start with quality at the beginning. Don't plan on retrofitting after somebody tells you what to do right. Next slide. Your brand is what other people think of you. It should be the image of what you want them to associate with you. And how it is your strategy or action, what you do. But not only that, it's how the other people perceive your action. And that's how it becomes your brand. You may do the right things, but you're sloppy late at times and stuff like that. And people, it decreases your brand. Next slide. Not only in the office, but the community service is also a great way to build your brand. It increases contact with people, not just the ones in your office. It gives a large audience opportunity to see you in action. Like me, the DC Academy of Veterinary Medicine, there were something like 700 people in it. So it gave you a large opportunity to see people, meet people. A Harvard study, it's good, that large audience, if you do well. Harvard University study found people involved in other activities were more successful in school. And there's a reason behind it, is that, but not only while in Harvard, but they also are more successful in 10 years after graduation. Because of time, I won't go into those reasons, but you can ask me later if you got time. Next slide. Why brand? What do you think when you see these images? How many like the first one, the Porsche? I see some thumbs up. How many like the Volkswagen one? Okay, next slide. What do people think of when they see you? Is it the Porsche has a good color, it's eye-catching, it's known for its quality. And when I was stationed in Germany, I had a BMW and it would cruise real well at 100 miles an hour. But one day I was going down the Autobahn and a Porsche and a Mercedes passed me. They had to be going 140. And so I decided to pull out behind them. I said, they'll clear the way. And my wife didn't like me going much faster than everybody else on the road. And it wasn't long before they left me. And I saw cars pulling out in between us. So I went ahead and slowed down. I said, if I have a wreck at this speed, I was probably hitting 130, 35. I think the BMWs had a governor on my 435 miles an hour. And I said, it'll be nothing but a blood spot. So, but even the color is more eye-catching than the mundane Volkswagen. Next slide. Why is brand important? It's what differentiates you from your competitors. The brand delivers a message, an unspoken message. It confirms your credibility, motivates others to trust or distrust you, and it gives others the confidence to follow you and be loyal to you. Next slide. Your presentation influences your brand. People well-groomed and good manners are perceived to be smarter, more in control, and more successful. The boss believes that these people will take as good care of their business there as they do themselves. Now, this may not be true at all, but at least that's the perception that you have by looking sharp. Your presentation influences your first impression. Next slide. If you follow some of these rules, some of these things, suggestions, on your trip, you will be headed towards success, I think. Next slide. Now, I went about 5 minutes over. So, but anyway, if anybody has questions, I'll be glad to. If you want more information, I got a website, faststartcareers.com. And what I did, I have about 5 or 6 hours of presentations. And this was only 30 minutes. And I really like to see people developing your career plan, your life plan. And but it's not as exciting as these little tidbits that you can turn into your office there. But you can go to that website. But I have all these written in that book. As I was leaving the Department of Homeland Security, I had some people say, well, won't you write this down? So my first year after retirement, I went ahead and what I did, I went to the office and I was typing it, but it was very slow. So I did my briefing off of my slides that I had and then sent it to myself and then word processed it. And then I sent it off to have it developed into a book, a workbook. But anyway, I got my phone number there. Be glad to call you. I'm retired now. I got quite a bit of extra time nowadays that I used to didn't have. So I'll be glad to help and do whatever you want. That's all I have.
Please post your questions on the chat. So, Dr. Meinders, I know that you moved from one career path to another, and you were climbing the career ladder very quickly. You became a very senior officer in the military as well as at Homeland Security. So, what really propelled you to move higher vertically in your career? What was the single most important thing, or a few?
I think it was a couple things. One thing is doing the best job you could of whatever task you were given. Keep your boss informed. And the other thing is support the boss. Keep him informed. Even if you may not agree with him, if you suggested something else, once he decides that's what you do, then you do it as if it was your idea. So they want allegiance, and so they're the boss. They put that person in charge for a reason. So And then what happened is, in turn, the reason I got most of the jobs in the military is because my boss recommended me for them. And matter of fact, a guy that I worked with in the military, that's how I wound up over at on that pharmaceutical project. He got a job over there, and he says, I get a lot of IT people, but I don't have access to many people, medical people have been around the block, and you've been around the block a few times. So, but you can't beat doing a good job and supporting the organization. And that usually wins you. The other thing I don't know that I mentioned on there is that if you see a task, you ought to be the innovator. You see, this is how I can improve things, suggest those things, and do them. And the other thing is that if you see a task that, even though it's not your area, but you see that it can be done pretty easily, be successful, go ahead and volunteer to do it. And that gives you some credibility. The other thing is that if a harder one comes along, you don't have to volunteer for that. They'll pick somebody else because you've already done one, you know. So it buys you some time. So yeah, that's all. There's a whole strategy there, and like I said, I'd be glad to talk to you all about it or whatever. So anyway,
We have one question, Dr. Meinders. Thank you for your presentation. What tips would you have for someone who realizes the importance of self-marketing, but is hesitant to market themselves?
well, about my main thought there is get over it. You know, you got to speak up for yourself, because nobody else really will do it. And that elevator speech is what I like. Is that, you know, I say, well, I'm a veterinarian. I've had a lot of different experiences in military, private practice, and what have you, in corporate world and nonprofit. But for the last 15 years, my enthusiasm has been in helping young people to get off to a good start in their career in life. If you start out on the right track, and I do a part in there about financing, and let me see, I wrote down some of the things in that book, is that financial, building a life plan, good debt versus bad debt, and then what I have in there, like a life plan, I did it several times and just had people to write it down. Well, they write a little bit down, they would do it. But what I did, I made forms and I put it in that book. Now there's a line, and then they had a line to write on, then they would start writing on it. And when they get through within that hour, they pretty much have at least the first draft of a life plan. And then I go further than that. What do you do the first 3 months to achieve these? What do you do the next 6 months in order to achieve these? So you got to not only have the plan, but you got to have action to do it. Yeah, I was asked to speak at the AVMA convention on work-life balance. And I told the guy, I said, I can't do that. I said, I'm probably the worst example. I'm a workaholic. And he said, well, just get up there and tell people what not to do, you know. But I worked on it, and I put together a fairly decent briefing on that and stuff. I really hadn't thought about some of those things. But
So, Dr. Meinders, excuse me, what's your answer on the work-life balance? Just curious. What did you tell them on the work-life balance?
Do what about it? I didn't understand.
What did you tell your audience when you were asked to speak on the work-life balance?
Well, you know, is that you need to take time to spend with your family. The family is a very important part of it, which I was fortunate. My wife did not work because we moved so much. She couldn't have a job outside the house, but she stayed home with the kids and kept them on the right path. And I was free. And she told me, some wives said they don't want to move. But my wife said, if that's good for your career, go ahead. The kids and I will be there. So there was the communications and support of each other. And if she needed things and stuff, I would try to support her too as well. It's, you know, you're a team. You're not an individual. You're a team with the family. And and we had the moral issues or factors. Our kids did well, but what we did when they got to be up in sort of early teens, we moved so much. We picked a church out that had a good youth pastor, a professional youth pastor, not somebody who's a volunteer. And even though we may not like the church, but it was good for the kids. And so we always went there. So they got introduction to them. And matter of fact, some of the friends that they made there had good moral values, and they still stay in contact with them. So, I mean, life is full of millions of questions, and it's not just one size fits all, you know. But you got to know your basic moral values and follow them, even though sometimes it's not as easy as taking the easier path.
Okay, thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Meinders. Let us all give our big thanks to Dr. Minder for sharing with us her practical real life experience. And we may invite him back again because, as you know, he is a veterinarian. So, and he takes care of big animals. So in case you would like to bring him back, you have questions about your animals, and I'm sure you have a lot of pets too, let me know so we can invite Dr. Minders next year. We have one last minute question. What mental dialogue and mindset can you suggest to have to be able to defeat the negative thoughts and self-doubts?
How to defeat negative thoughts in yourself or other people?
Self-doubts.
Negative suspects.
Self-doubts.
Oh, self-doubt.
Yeah. What mental dialogue and mindset can you suggest?
Well, you know, public speaking was very difficult for me, but I don't think you saw me nervous. I stuttered some today because I finished putting these things together this morning and trying to make it flow. So, but you just got to get out there and do it and start. I was a lay reader in our church. The first time I got up, I could control my voice, but my leg was shaking. But I started doing that, and I finally got comfortable doing that. Then Toastmasters, and then lo and behold, I got a job as the chief of the medical readiness for U.S. Air Force in Germany, and I had to do a lot of public speaking. And I just finally got comfortable doing it. The more you do something, the more comfortable you get with it. And I tell you, sometimes you're uncomfortable, but start small. That's the reason I say Toastmasters are good. And the other thing is that you find somebody that's good, sharp, is willing to help, get mentored by them. I have gone to people and asked them, you know, what do you do about this? And most people, if you ask them, they're pleased to answer that somebody thinks that they did well. And so it's positive. I mean, life is a learning situation all the way through. You'll hit new things every year, and it's continually learning. So I can't give you a specific answer very well. I mean, I just sort of felt my way through it, you know, and how do we do this. But fortunately, I was very supportive of my boss. And when my boss left, when I was in a strategic planning office, he went down to the Surgeon General's office, and within a year, he got me down there. So because I supported him and he wanted that support. He wanted allegiance. He wanted allegiance above everything else that somebody would do. But a lot of people say, well, I'm not doing that. And I became the deputy in that office, and I gave this one guy a tasker to do. And below, next thing I knew, he gave it back to me because he couldn't do it because he's going to be leaving in a little while. Well, you got a couple of days to do it. Well, I'm going to be gone. I may not be back, you know. So a lot of people just want a free ride in life. You don't want that to be your brand. Matter of fact, he was an administrator. I was a veterinarian, but they put me as deputy of the office instead of him, even though we were same year group, same month we were promoted. So we were equal in that respect. And he had an advantage because he was an administrator, and that was administrators also. But I wasn't trained as an administrator, but I did have the work ethic. You know, work ethic's a big part. Be determined.
So, Dr. Minders, in your elevator speech, I received a question. What do you think are the most important part that you can mention or should be included in your elevator speech?
I think you need to give a little bit of background and showing your broad base. And then what you want to end up with is what you want to present to them. What is your future? And I would end up with my passion now is working with youth groups, young people, and getting them off to a fast start in their career. So it's that give a background and give them where you want to go, something that they may be, give them something that they can probably help you with.